And we're live in three, two, and welcome everybody to another episode of the Planetmullins Podcast. We're in season 6, having a great time. And today, my guest is a band member of an incredible group called Opium Moon, recently won a Grammy. And I have the violinist from that group, Lili Hayn, on the show today. Hi, Lili.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
Doing great. I I'm super stoked because I've been wanting to have you on and to have the whole band on. And thanks for coming on as a representative of the whole group today. And you guys have a new album out. Let's start right there with that. What's the album called?
Called Where We Are Gathered.
Where We Are Gathered. Okay. So, and it's not about the guys right there at the Lincoln Boulevard and the 90 with the homeless signs. It's
You know,
about something else.
it's not specifically about them, but it's really about all of us, honestly.
Huh?
In this time where we're all so disconnected from social media and feeling sort of, disconnected from the from each other, basically through AI and wars and suffering and climate disasters and so forth. Uh, where we are gathered, there's hope. Where we are gathered, we can have ideas and evolve. Where we are gathered, we can make peace. So it's really inclusive. It's about inclusivity.
Mhm.
On this album, we have some guests where previous albums we had no guests. Um, so we've got some special guests, and in fact, at the show we're going to be talking about, we will have a couple of those guests as well.
Great.
But so it's more of an inclusive album, and it really speaks to the way that we come together as a band as well, which is that we come from different regions of the world, from the three major Abrahamic religions, Islam, Christian, and Jew, and we make peace through harmony because we listen to each other. In fact, we did a concert for the TED stage a couple of years ago before the world shut down, and the premise of that talk, it was a TED talk in India. The premise of that TED talk was that the way we make music together could be a template for how to make peace in the world, because we have to listen to each other. We have to make room for each other's ideas. We proceed with the understanding that what we do together is greater and more innovative than anything we could have done on our own. So that's
Wow.
what where we are gathered means.
Well, I really appreciate that detailed explanation. Now, I don't know if I'm saying this right. As far as your guest, Benji Wertheimer, what does Benji Wertheimer do?
So Benji Wertheimer is a devotional singer and multi-instrumentalist. He and I actually came together on the Krishna Das record many moons ago, and we stayed in touch. And he asked me to perform. He asked me to play violin and sing on his album with his group Shantala. And I did that, and he has this beautiful track on there in which he was singing in these kind of Gregorian chant vocals. And I thought, that would be a beautiful addition to the Opium Moon sound. So I asked him if he would be up for it. And my husband and the bass player in Opium Moon and co-producer on this album is Itai Disraeli. And Itai Disraeli is a student of Thich Nhat Hanh, the past Vietnamese Buddhist monk who brought mindfulness to the West. And Thich Nhat Hanh has a version of the metta prayer, which is a loving kindness prayer. And may all beings know peace. May all beings be free from suffering. May they be happy. And so we translated that into the traditional Pali language. Actually, we used the Pali words, and Benji sang them, and it became this very, a solemn and sacred prayer for peace and togetherness. And we put it to this super kind of massive attacky groove
Right.
line and some sensual playing and these beautiful harmonies and everything, and it just came together so beautifully. That's the metta prayer, and that came out last month as a single, and it's been gathering steam, and hopefully will be a good driver for this album, which we just care so much about. And it's just packed full of sensuality and deep grooves and sort of mature virtuosity. But it's I like to tell people it's the best music for making out or meditating.
You know, I've had those parallels drawn about my own stuff. Now, the Zoom froze when you were talking about Itai's mentor or person that he was working with.
Yeah,
Just,
so Itai Disraeli is the bass player in the
yeah,
band,
right.
and Itai has been a student of Thich Nhat Hanh.
Thich Nhat Hanh, that was the name
And
that the
Nhat
Zoom
Hanh,
froze.
I
Right.
apologize. We live in a neighborhood that doesn't always get great internet.
That's okay.
And so uh, anyway, so yes, he's a student of Thich Nhat Hanh, who is the Buddhist the Buddhist teacher from Vietnam who brought the concept of mindfulness to the West.
Okay.
He has a beautiful version of the metta prayer in which we pray for the world that may all beings have be free from suffering. May all beings be happy. May
Got
it
it.
be at peace.
Okay, well, one of the things that really strikes me as unique about your group, and I noticed this when I heard you play a couple of years ago, and I'll be coming to your event on September 23. We're going to talk about that expeditiously and soon. But I like how you've all been open-minded enough to come from different religions, and everything is unified in Opium Moon because you guys do open-minded world conscious music where it's not what you remember just a minute ago you were saying, yeah, everyone's so disconnected because of social media. It's supposed to connect us, but it has the exact opposite effect. And I think the fact that you guys are open-minded enough to have all these different religious and meditative viewpoints, but when it comes to the music, all of that gets incorporated and the bias gets put to the side, and you do wonderful stuff. Now, on this new,
And if I could add to that, I
yeah,
neglected to say that not only are we from Islam, Jew and Christian backgrounds, but we are also the Santoor player. That's Hamid Saeidi. He's a Santoor Persian hammered dulcimer maestro, really one of the greats of our time. He's from Iran, and Itai Disraeli is from Israel.
wow,
And both of whose countries are, in complete turmoil right now, and where the governments are exacting some very oppressive policies on, on all their populations.
right.
And so we come from these war-torn places, and we are able to listen to each other and bring our hearts, and that's where we make peace through harmony.
I just absolutely love that concept. And, for years in my uh, recordings, I've had similar, it's kind of fun when you said you're either going to make out or you're going to meditate to this music. And people would ask me in my early interviews, and I said, it's either praying to God or having sex. Pretty much everything that I write about.
Exactly. Well, and if you read Rumi and Hafiz, a lot of their metaphors are, could be, if you didn't know they were, coming to it from a, God perspective, one might think it was erotic.
Right.
And
Well,
honestly, what the truth is that it's all God. And in Judaism, we say every day. Shema says, Israel, which literally means God wrestler, the paradox.
wow, I
The
love
Lord is
that.
God, the Lord is one, which
Well,
is the same prayer as La ilahu illallah, which is there's no God but God. It's all God. And so if everything is God, then sex is God and prayer is God. And so it's all about being in a state of flow, receptivity, humility, and creativity.
well, I'm going to probably have to go to, when I put all the Zoom links in, I'm going to probably have to do a suggested reading list. But let's talk now about September the 23rd at 7 p.m. That's the album release party for your new album at Village Recorders. And for those of you that don't know Village Recorders, it's pretty much the best and biggest and most famous studio in LA. John Mayer's had a private studio there for years. Dixie Chicks had a place there for years. Steely Dan Asia was mixed there. And you're going to perform with your whole group there September 23rd. And tickets are on sale now, right? Tell me about the gig coming up.
It's so exciting. We really play in Los Angeles so rarely, so it's a rare chance to see us basically slide into ecstasy and play music that has been given. And we have a couple of special guests, and we have our dear friend Norton Wisdom, who's a live painter. Of course he's living, but he paints live to music with these incredible images, and it's constantly morphing. And it's this 14-foot backlit, transparent backlit screen
Wow.
that he paints to the music, and it's just like this. It's a multimedia, all-encompassing, sensual and ecstatic experience, and that really is what it is. We're all very intense and kind of and passionate performers. Boy, this is sounding so sexual, isn't it?
That's okay. Well, it's too
But
early.
you know what? The truth is, honestly, it's about the being in the flow. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're feeding the cat, if you're feeding, or playing the most sublime music. If you're feeling a sense of being connected to all life and the source of creation, then it's about the flow. And that's what we do. It's really the embodiment of the flow in this band. So September 23rd will be a very special show. We're going to be premiering all of this music that's never been performed before.
Wow.
And it's truly groovy, truly inspired, and we just could not be more delighted to be doing it.
That's going to be so fun. Well, I noticed in listening through the album this morning that you have one of our Recording Academy icons, Wouter Kellerman, as a guest.
Yes.
Yes, and I love Wouter because Wouter is, one of the kind of the top, I'd say he's one of the top flute players in the world that is sharing the vision of your band, But
Yeah.
But what I noticed after his last Grammy win is that now all of a sudden I'll go on Facebook and it's Wouter playing tennis. It's Wouter with an apron on cooking at a celebrity cookout. And then he's in an African village, working with the villagers. He's really turning into like a world celebrity figure these days. How did you get him on your album?
Well, we've been nominated twice for Grammys and won once. And the last time we were nominated, he and we were both nominated in the New Age field, and Ricky Kej won that year. But Wouter and I said, well, I listened to his album and just loved his sound. I fell in love with the tone,
Right.
and I just love the sound of flute and violin together. I said, you would sound divine with Opium Moon. Would you consider doing a collaboration? And we actually set out to make an entire album together.
Wow.
But he's in Johannesburg,
Uh-huh.
and we of course are in Los Angeles. So even we really needed to be in the same room to kind of see that vision through. But we have a few other tracks that we hope will go on another record, and we've got but this one was the one that sort of spoke to us and was the most ready, and he was delighted to have us to include him and to have him. So yeah, we've also got a legendary Persian singer named Hengame, and she's like the Celine Dion of Iran. And that song is called Woman, Life, Freedom. And we are, and of course it was done in solidarity with the women's movement in Iran that formed after the 22-year-old woman Mahsa Amini was killed by the morality police for showing a little bit of her hair.
Right.
And actually we're coming up on the year anniversary of her murder, and we're going to be playing that song at a giant rally for 100,000 people. Anyway, so it's done, of course, in the same spirit as Where We Are Gathered, There Can Be Peace.
I'm getting chills just thinking about all the fun stuff and the fun that we're going to have at this September 23 thing. But before we run out of time, I was reading your bio, and I know the band is like fantastic and your Grammy winners and everything, but oh my God, I got to hear about a couple of just, really brief stories about some of these people that you've collaborated with. So let's start with Jimmy Page and Robert Plant.
Well, I got to meet them at one of their shows when they were doing the No Quarter tour about 25 years ago.
Wow.
And I invited them to my show at the Viper Room, which I
Oh,
was
Viper Room. Yeah, I love the place.
And I mean, I was 20, and so what did I know about how that probably wouldn't happen? I just was giving flyers to everyone, and yeah, you should come to my show. And
Right.
and turns out they came to my show, and they with their entire entourage, and then they asked me to sit in on Kashmir, and so I got to play with them on that tour. And then about 5 years later, they invited me to open for them with my band on their last US tour. And so I got to open for Page and Plant for 3 months throughout the whole US. And that was, and what I learned from them was to take risks. That was the one thing they said, take risks. And so that's really kind of like the driving force of my, what I seek to do in any musical situation. And that risk taking is definitely embodied in Opium Moon. We have melodies, and we've a handful of themes, but 80% of what we're doing is improvised, and we're really walking a tightrope. But because we've all been doing it so long, and because we've got this incredible chemistry together, it's just electric. It's just, we've never, we always find something new that we didn't expect. It's really a process of discovery, and it's unlike anything else that I have really been a part of, because it's so much the embodiment of that risk taking.
I really love all those descriptions. Before we go on to MB Gordy in your band, I just wanted to say, pretty much, 20, 25 years ago, one of the most risk-taking things a young female that's 20 or 21 could do is to go on the road with old guy rockers named Jimmy Page and Robert Plant. You had just on your own, you had a lot of guts to just say, oh, let me just appear with the Led Zeppelin dudes.
Well, also, I would just say I also got to be an honorary member of Parliament Funkadelic, which with George Clinton.
Wow.
And I was a part of Herbie Hancock's band on the road for one season, and got to play. I got to play at Carnegie Hall and the Vienna Opera House with him, and share a stage with Wayne Shorter and Brian Blade and so forth. It was really like I've been really, really lucky, and just learned so much from every single person I've had the honor of playing with, and it's all manifested in Opium Moon. Even though we're kind of, my favorite review of ours is that we're world music from another world.
Oh, swanky.
But and of course all the kind of notions of sensuality and deep grooves and ancient modern sounds, but really what we all come from these diverse backgrounds with rock and jazz and Persian classical music and Western classical music and funk, all this kind of. And Emma is a little bit skeptical of world fusion things, because it can feel a little bit kind of hodgepodge, and it can sometimes feel a little bit contrived or gimmicky when you can kind of see the duct tape holding it all together. This is because we're coming to it without an agenda, and we're coming to it without a real script. We're coming into it with our spirits.
Right, love that.
It all blends together seamlessly. You can't tell where the Iranian and the Israeli, there are no borders, so to speak. It's all just music, and that's what I've learned from the greats that I've had the honor of playing with.
That's so amazing. Now, for the young people that watch my show, and that's a smaller demographic. The one I'm the OG, and then you're in the middle, and then there's the young people. But young people out there was something called a drone before it was a flying robotic airplane device. And the drone was something that happened largely, in my recollection, from Indian music, because I'm the keyboardist for Hubert Laws, who's a fantastic flute player. And,
Brilliant. I love him.
and in 1972, he was in a studio creating these drones by, having certain things recorded. He'd have a sitar, and he'd have a low drum playing a role, and then he'd have a contrabass, and it would all come together and be a drone kind of a sound, like a low note. And my task with him, in order to get on a tour to India, was to recreate all that on a synthesizer, which I was able to do and go over there. Now, in your band, you have what I'd say, one of the greatest percussionists around, in MB Gordy, who can create a drone on his own with his percussion. But the way his custom, I guess it's a custom drum kit that he's made out of all this stuff. It's kind of like a droning ostinato percussive phrase that he uses on this stuff. He's amazing. I mean, tell me about him real quick.
Well, MB Gordy and I met also back in the day, like decades ago. He was playing with a band and that was led by my mom's boyfriend, and we stayed in touch, and then we ended up both. He's of course ubiquitous and always the first call percussionist on all the big blockbuster films and televisions. You've heard his, he's the sound of people, the Vikings, conquering England or wherever they the Vikings were those, Harry Potter flying over the mountains. So he and I also play and sing for a lot of I used to more, but I'm actually I became my own film composer. So we both have performed a lot for television and film, and he and I were on the same recording date. And when I saw his name, really with Opium Moon, every single step has been given. I found Hamid. Actually, Itai and I found Hamid, and I just was like, that's the sound. I have to make a record with him. So I started stalking him. And I finally got together. We got together and we made this. The violin and Santoor just had this sublime sound together. But it wasn't, it was heavenly, but it wasn't kind of libidinal or visceral exactly. Right. So Itai and the three of us got together and jammed, and we knew we needed the right percussionist. And when I saw MB's name, I was like, that's our guy. The angels said, you need to corner him. I cornered him at this session and I said, so I've got this group, we're forming this group, and we really want, I think you're the right guy for it. He said, and he was like, yeah, I jam with people, in 2 months on a Sunday morning at 9 a.m., I can squeeze you in for 2 hours. It's really hard to get. We showed up with our A game and we recorded our get together, and the very first thing we played ended up on our Grammy winning record.
Wow.
First thing we played with no rehearsal. Incredible. It was magic from the start. MB is he's this fiery, passionate, soaring, sensitive, creative musician. He's just an entire orchestra in and of this himself with his percussion.
Yeah, I really.
And on this. Our earlier albums, he mostly played the frame drum. That sounds very ancient. The frame drum and the darbuka, which kind of gives it the more driving, higher pitched percussion. But on this album, we played a lot in the same room also, but we also did some overdubs, and MB got to bring some more of his cinematic flavors. So it's some stacking of the big drums, and it really does bring some of those Viking sounds to it. And we got to experiment.
Well, I really think that, of course you're 100% right because it's your band, but he just does add that kind of cinematic, really expansive big, deep kind of groove that you guys can float over the top of that. Now, before we run out of time, I just want to thank you so much for coming on because it's been a long time coming. I've never had a chance to collaborate with you or play a live gig. We almost played one 2 years ago when I was going to sub for some piano player of yours. And I don't know who that person is, but I hope they get really busy playing with someone else so that I can actually do a gig or a recording with you. Because, folks, if you haven't heard of Lili Hayn, just look her up on the internet or go to the website, Opium Moon's website, because she is an incredible virtuoso, multi-talented, great singer, amazing composer. And on this new album, I was waiting and waiting for, all of the dark, ominous kind of stuff to resolve. And then I got to the last track, which was track 11, and it was about empowering women. It was in G major. And at that point, I was like, oh, the G major song is here. And what a lovely way to wrap up the brand new album of yours. So I'll be seeing you, and I hope everyone that watches this will be seeing you and your fantastic group September 23rd at Village Recorders. It's at Santa Monica Boulevard and Butler in West Los Angeles. Tickets are $45. They have parking there at the Village, but just down from the Village is a public parking. And it's a pretty big shindig. There's like wine and hors d'oeuvres, and a lot of the recording academy will be there. What's that?
We're also having an after party because we really want to celebrate with everyone, in the spirit of where we are gathered. We're going to have this concert, and then we're going to be hanging out and celebrating the fact that we can be in the same room together. And so for some of my people, $45 is a ticket that's, it's a little bit of a formidable price tag, but it includes parking, it includes wine and hors d'oeuvres and a really beautiful party. And the concert is really going to be phenomenal and special and a rare occasion.
Very rare. Very rare for you guys to do this. And living in LA for so many years, I will tell you guys that, if you get free parking included for $45, if you try and go to downtown LA, your parking is not going to be free, and it's going to be $100. So you're going to get parking included, which is something that's amazing. David Brunt must have lined that up. But thanks again for coming on, Lili, and I'll be listing all the links in the YouTube description box. One quick last thing, because we have about 2 minutes left. Advice for young artists. Go.
If there's anything else that would make you happy, do that. But if only making your art makes you happy, then give it everything you've got and do something for your art every day. Find no excuse why you shouldn't, just give it everything. And my mom used to say, the only thing that's fair is between you and the creation. So just keep that, your relationship with your art and your muse can be religion. It can be that your spiritual evolution and your artistic evolution are inextricably linked. So just give it every fiber of your being. That's my advice.
Wow, that is fantastic. Well, that's going to do it, folks, for another episode of the Planetmullins Podcast. My guest today has been Lili Hayn, and her band Opium Moon will be performing. She's got a brand new album out. And come on down to the party September 23rd. I'm going to be there.
And if I could just say, I believe that by the time this actually streams, the album will be out. Please go stream it on whatever your streaming service is.
Right.
And you can just remember that AI and algorithms are basically determining what you listen to. So you have to go listen to it, or music like ours will not survive. It's really more important than ever. I've made it a policy. Anybody who sends me music now, I'm listening, because we have to support real music. Otherwise, the computers really will take over. So go and listen to this album. It's called Where We Are Gathered. And just know that it is imbued with all the love in the world, and it's including you.
Beautiful. All right. Thanks, Lily. And I'll be seeing you. Thank you, everybody, for continuing to support my show. And that's going to do it for today. We'll see you all on the next one. Bye bye now.
Bye.